Welcome to Three, a part of the Tennis Channel podcast network. I'm Gill with Joel Drucker and Amy Lundy. It is the 2024 Paris Olympic Game preview, one that is almost surely to be the last that any of our big three play, which is crazy to say. We haven't really been able to say with any certainty that that's the case for any tournament, because every annual tournament, obviously, we haven't come up against this, but does feel kind of unlikely that Novak Djokovic will be playing in the 2028 games, and it really feels like the last one, which is incredible. For Nadal, we don't know how many tournaments he has left even, and for Djokovic, it's a chance to kind of get one of the only things in the entire sport that he doesn't have, which is an Olympic gold. So, Amy, I'm going to start with you. Not an easy question, but who is the bigger story coming into this Olympics in terms of importance? Like, do you think Djokovic or Nadal is? I'd say which one would you say has more buzz?
I think Nadal, because this literally could be his last tournament. You never know. To end his career at Roland Garros could be something that he wants to do. And he's going back to the place where there's a statue of him. And we don't really know how he's going to hold up. He played really well last week in a 250, but it's kind of a mystery. Now he's got this thigh injury that's keeping him from practicing. So just because we know that we really, really are nearing the end for Nadal and because of the place, Roland Garros, I think that has a little more buzz.
I think I kind of go with that a little bit. I think obviously as the tournament evolves, we'll see how it goes for no, Rafa. Also playing doubles with Alcaraz. Yeah, I think there's a lot of Nadal intrigue. Novak certainly. It's a little bit. It's funny. It's a little bit going to come also down to how the performance goes. For Novak, I think it's so tremendously exciting. If Rafa wasn't there, even more attention on Novak. I think the Novak angle, the stuff you mentioned, Gil, is right. I mean, the Novak resume and the importance to him of the Olympics. I think to me, the Olympics is very much this elective course, and if you don't do well at it or you don't play it, it's okay. But when it means something to you, and I know it really is heartfelt to Novak. We've talked about that before, about the importance of Serbia, the importance of the 2010 Davis Cup and kind of vaulting his career to the next level beginning in 2011. I think it's really very, very meaningful to Novak.
I like the performance based thing because obviously for Nadal, it's almost independent of the result. He could lose first round to Marton Fucsovics, and Olympics 2024 would be somewhat notable anyway for Rafa as kind of the probably potentially the goodbye to Court Philippe Chatrier, and maybe not. But if it were, then that would mean something. Whereas Djokovic, I would say if he doesn't do well at this Olympics, honestly, if he, anything short of silver or gold at this Olympics, and it will probably be pretty easily forgotten. Whereas if he wins the gold, it could actually be enormous, absolutely enormous for Novak. One of his great triumphs, the career equivalent of a buzzer beater in basketball, as he's had a couple of chances to do this. In 2021, he was looking primed to do it, and it didn't work out for him. To have the pressure where this is my last chance to do it. It's the one thing I haven't done, and then to do it, it would be huge. There is such an interesting juxtaposition, though, Joel. I want to go back to what you said about kind of the importance of the Olympics. Isn't it crazy to square that for some players, this Olympics, this event is going to be the highlight of their career, like the line A of their career. And for others, it's not even worth playing. There's such a massive range there.
That is really interesting. I think a lot of it has to do with where the player comes from, the player's parents. I mean, there's not a zillion, there are a number of stories such as Lindsay Davenport, Andre Agassi, and others whose parents competed in the Olympics. And so that's a major thing. There's so many things that have the Olympics a different thing, and the importance of representing one's country, the significance of one's country in the global scheme of things. All sorts of things. And then where the players' arc is going. That's right. We see some players opted not to play the Olympics, and that's okay. That's their choice. And others would be no question they would play the Olympics no matter what.
It's just a really interesting tournament and set of draws. Suddenly, the singles players are interested in playing doubles because wouldn't it be cool to win a gold medal, an Olympic gold medal in doubles, you know? I wrote that it feels like something between a Grand Slam and a Masters 1000, maybe even better than the tour finals in terms of like cachet. For me, this is just my opinion. It doesn't quite meet the level of a Grand Slam, but and yet it's really interesting and the draws are very strong.
Well, it's good field. I always wish my wish for the Olympics was that it had been conceived as a team event, akin to like a world team tennis format. So let's pretend the gold medal had once come down to Roger Federer and Martina Hingis versus Serena Williams and Andy Roddick for the gold. We know it has a ceremonial quality to it or a special event quality. So let's make it that much more special. Reminds me a little bit of that Hopman Cup a few years ago where Roger and Serena got to play each other. And I wish it had been conceived of that. Now players each go on their own. Yeah, it's incredibly meaningful if you win it, but it's no big deal if you don't.
Exactly. It's funny. I find that I'm split in half because as a player, if I were a player, I don't think I'd ever skip it. And I think what Daniil Medvedev said resonated with me that you go because it's an experience that many of the greatest athletes on the planet can share together. And it's something to tell your kids about, and it's something to live. You live the Olympics, and it means something not just to sports fans, it means something to everybody. And I'm sorry, but Indian Wells doesn't. It just doesn't mean something to everybody. It means something to tennis fans, and that's it.
Well, that's
So,
kind of the thing. That's right in the silo in the tennis world, but it does mean
right.
something. It means more, but it means more to win Indian Wells in a player's career than it does to win the Olympics. I've
But
talked to my evaluation as a, however, I think it's still an important thing. I'm never gonna look back on Roger Federer's career and say, oh, he never won the singles in the Olympics.
I agree. I agree. But so I guess where I was going with this is as a player, and it's hard to put yourself in those shoes, right? You don't know, but if I try to put myself in those shoes, I don't think I'd ever skip the Olympics. I think it would mean a lot to me to experience it. But as a journalist, I'm more like you, Joel, and I'm not scrutinizing it too heavily. It's kind of like whatever happens, happens. If players are don't prioritize it or don't play well at it, whatever. But if they do, it's a great experience for them in their careers.
And being around the other athletes is neat. I thought and if I wrote many years ago, I wrote an article at one point I liked tennis in the Olympics, then I didn't, and I thought it shouldn't be. But one of my colleagues pointed out to me the incredible role it plays in player development around the world because what it does, once tennis became an Olympic sport officially in '88, after being a test game version in '84, it made tennis credible in a great many countries. Wow, this is an Olympic sport? Wow, let's get in on it. China, more Russia, these other countries, tennis is an Olympic sport. And the importance of the Olympics, I think, to countries beyond the US is massive. So that plays a significant, that's the reason why I think there are a lot more countries involved in tennis than there once were.
Good point. Good point. That's pretty significant. All right. Well, Nadal in the first round plays Marton Fucsovics. Djokovic plays Matthew Ebden. And maybe burying the lead that I haven't mentioned this yet. Uh, they're they're on a second round collision course. So let's discuss the draws and where they're at. There's a lot to kind of unpack and cover. Let's just quickly go to Nadal in Bostad. Amy, what were your takeaways there before we go into the draw itself? What did you observe about Rafa last week?
My observations were that the forehand was looking really good. All the movement around the forehand was looking really good. How he likes to run around and hit his forehand inside out or inside in. just hit his forehand as opposed to his backhand, even in some of the most extreme angles on the court from the baseline. That looked really good to me, like as good as it ever has. His serve, not so great, particularly his first serve. He was getting broken quite a bit. I looked at his, Nadal is the king, the career leader in all of tennis, in all of history, in second serve points won. And it's something like 58%. So the gold standard is kind of 50%. If you're doing 50% or better, winning your second serve points, you're doing well. So he's like around 58%, and he's the all-time career leader. When you narrow it down to just clay, it's sky high. I mean, you're getting up way past 60 now. So I always look at that as a gauge, particularly on clay. If he's in the 60s, that's, he's doing well. He's playing his style of tennis. And he was in all of the matches except for the Navoni match, which really was a close match. It was a grind. He had to figure out how to win it. Classic Rafa solutions. It just the whole tournament took a lot out of him, and it didn't surprise me that he lost the final.
How nice to see Nadal compete, and the thing that lets him down physically is just stamina. I mean, it's just he match play, so it wasn't an injury, it wasn't a trainer thing, and that I find that very encouraging. That makes you feel fairly encouraged against Fucsovic, a veteran, played a lot, good, solid player. Had his moments, and that should be interesting to see. But I think we're all eager to see, uh, Rafa advance.
Yeah, I thought it looked okay from Nadal last week, but he needs to beat. I mean, his problem so far this year has been the matches are getting too long and physical against players who he can't afford. He needs to beat easily, and he's not beating them easily. Now, Navone is very good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's really good.
Mm-hmm.
But Nadal, that doesn't change the fact that Nadal in this current physical state, he can't play a 4 hour match and go on to win the final against Cam Norrie, 2, 3 days later after playing another three setter after that. It's not in the cards. And in Rome, he played a 3 hour match against Zizou Bergs. Like you got to win easier. And that's been
Yes.
kind of where he's run into trouble. No, Joel?
Yeah, I agree. These are all players look, these are like his children. It's finally like we talked before. Rafa's raised the bar and raised the bar and raised the bar and said, okay, now I'm young and you're a little older. It's not too far distant from what Alcaraz did to Novak in the Wimbledon final. Guys are younger and they're faster and they're stronger and they've gotten better by the bar that's been raised by these great players.
Yeah. All right.
By the way, I want to add to this, by the way, is why tennis is different than I'm going to use something I've realized, and Gil, you and I have talked about this. In golf, you do keep your handicap. Only your skills erode. But this sport is graded on a curve. So like, right, I mean, so the way, like, I'm just using an example of our world. I've been rated a 4.5 years. I'm a 4.0. I'm just because I'm being pushed out. The curve of it all is pushing that. It doesn't mean so you look at it at a world-class level. Rob is great. It's tremendous, but these guys are really good. And it's interactive. It's not like golf where he just maintains his scratch level of play.
Yeah, and Fucsovics is a test. I don't think if he plays his best, I think he should win. If he's healthy, he should win. Fucsovics is on a pretty lengthy losing streak. Starting in May, he lost first round Rome, first round Roland Garros, first round Wimbledon, first round Kitzbühel. I don't think he's been healthy. He hasn't really played much of a full schedule either. But in April, he actually beat Navone, beat Tabilo, beat Griegspoor, won a clay court challenger in Bucharest, Romania. So we'll see kind of what state Fucsovics is in. I don't think we'll get the best version of Martin Fucsovics. Djokovic, meanwhile, has and I'm sorry, as far as tennis at this level is concerned, an absolute gimme. I mean, Matthew Ebden at this point in time is a doubles player and he's a serve and volleyer. I even think when he was at his best in singles, I don't think he liked clay very much. So he is going to, I think, attempt to serve and volley on clay to beat Djokovic. It is the most ideal opponent you can have. And the reason why, it would never happen in a regular event, but for the Olympics, there's no qualifying. So when someone withdraws, you have to go to the doubles and take someone out of the doubles to play singles. And that's Matthew Ebden. So Djokovic gets that gimme first round. I think we're going to get the Djokovic Nadal second round. I'm pretty confident.
I feel
Well,
yeah.
there's just the leg
The
injury.
leg
Like,
thing. Yeah.
look, guys, like I woke up at 6 a.m., which is early for me, yesterday, and I spent hours just thinking about all aspects of Djokovic and Nadal playing that second round. And I wrote my preview. And then as soon as my story posted, this thing comes out about his leg. So, that's okay. That's the way it
Yeah.
is. Um, I picked Nadal to win that match just because if he does play Djokovic, just because of everything, Roland Garros, the clay, their head to head on clay, things like that. But it could totally go either way. And, if we're assuming that the leg thing is not something that presents itself, then that's a different kind of match. Based on his Nadal's level of play last week at the Swedish Open, he should beat Fukovic. But if he doesn't, if the leg is bothering him, then it could be a problem.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about the Djokovic Nadal second round hypothetical. Even though, yeah, acknowledgement that like Marton Fucsovics is a super real threat, especially when he's playing well. And I just don't know if he's there, but especially when he's himself. Uh, Amy, I like that you picked Nadal. I didn't, but I think that compared to the general narrative around the match, people aren't taking Nadal potentially. I just think Nadal needs to be taken seriously. I don't think you could build
Nadal needs to be
circumstances.
taken seriously. Is there someone who hasn't? Has
Well, no,
25?
I think Djokovic will come in as the favorite in the odds. I think most people will be picking Djokovic, and I'm there, but I had to think pretty hard because I think the circumstances couldn't be better for Nadal. It's Chatrier, it's best of three, which I think is good for Nadal at this point. It's early rounds. I think that's good for Nadal at this point. And we can talk about this more. I think psychologically the Olympics are harder for Djokovic than any other tournament because I think he wants it a little bit too badly, unfortunately. And I mean, we see this in tennis sometimes. There's almost like a spectrum of motivation. You want the maximum amount of motivation, but then I think you can go past the point where you want it a little bit too bad. And that's what I've observed from Djokovic in past Olympics. And I don't see that really changing at this Olympics, considering it's an even more desperate spot.
He applies.
Throw in that he also is still recovering from the knee, which he suffered at Roland Garros, and was a bit exposed in the Wimbledon final for his
Right.
movement, potentially. Go ahead, Joel.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no, I think Novak applies a lot of pressure to himself around the Olympics because again, it's something he really wants to do well at, and so that's a big concern. Rafa has already excelled at the Olympics. He won in the singles. He's won in the doubles. So it's all pretty good for him, and he's it's of course he competes really hard, and we still wonder where his body is at and how he's going to be feeling and how his first round match, what effort that's going to take. The thing with Nadal, any match can go 3 hours now. And the erosion of him being 96% of what he was makes you appreciate the genius that much more because you don't, it's hard to see Nadal playing anyone. Oh yeah, this should just be a 2-2 between his playing style and the opponents. It's just going to take an effort. So that'll be the mystery to see how much effort he exerts in that first round match.
I
By
think
the
that'll
way,
be the
Gil,
key.
you mentioned serve and volley. Since I watched so much of Nadal last week, he was serving and volleying on clay, and he was doing it in like pivotal moments, like those moments when we all say Alcaraz brings out the drop shot. That's the break point against. That's when Nadal was doing the serve and volley, and it was working. I don't have the stats, but I'm sure it was somewhere near 60% or better.
Yeah. Well, if they're not, when you use it as a surprise and you're going into a righty backhand with that lefty serve and make them hit a great backhand return, and Nadal's volleys are awesome. So I feel like it's a percentage play.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great. And look, it's also one of the major points about net rushing. Win or lose that point, you won something. Win or lose that point, you accomplished something. You just tilted things a little bit. You forced the opponent to think about how they return. You brought it into play. So it's not even about the specific point. I mean, it's like I told you, I think whenever I come to net, I give myself a 0.25 credit for
Yep.
having gotten there and forced something. And so good for Rafael. That'll be interesting to see then if he and Novak play, which is going to be like, seems like old times. Okay, let's go. Battle number, I think it would be number 60. Is that right? They played 59 times. I think
I,
that's it.
I didn't
30
look.
and 29, I think. Novak has it 30 to 29. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure.
Well, a lot.
I actually think in terms of, I don't know. I think it's not going to look like a normal Nadal Djokovic match that we're used to seeing. I just our eyes won't lie to us. It's not going to look the same, but I still think it's going to be it would be great. I think in every way it would be fantastic.
Absolutely, it'd be great.
So I had this idea to do this like bingo card where you had every possible outcome, like it's a close battle and Djokovic wins, or
Uh-huh.
it's a close three-set battle and Nadal wins, or it's a straight set drubbing and Djokovic wins, or it's a straight set, like every possible or just a well fought, you know, three set, but not close, like every
Sure.
possible scenario. And under which scenario would Nadal say, I'm good. I'm done now. I feel satisfied. I feel good ending my career with this match against one of my main rivals at Roland Garros under my belt in the bank. I battled hard, win or lose, like I'm good now. So I was like, under what scenario would he do that? But the thing I didn't have on my bingo card was that if he pulls out of singles, did not have that one.
Oh, I'm ready with my answer. Zero. There's no scenario where Rafa's going to say after, oh yes, well, I'm good. Like I can retire now.
Yes.
Oh, I think he's even entertaining notions of playing Roland Garros next year.
Yeah, well, he is, but in retrospect, like after the match is already finished. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can't figure
An
out,
hour a
Amy.
day or a year, an hour a day or a year after the match.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know.
An
That
hour
I
after
don't
the
know.
match, he still wants to play a day after the match. I think the thing about Rafa that's so interesting, and maybe that should be true for any of us, but it's all been good. He's the way he's been trained to the game, there isn't a sense, I think fans imbue desires onto these people. I know I have at times in my tennis viewing life, my desires onto them. It's sort of like the way people want the Hollywood ending. Oh, I want them to go out winning. I want to see them live. I think Rafa has it's interesting for someone who's such a good competitor, but there's kind of a Zen quality to him that it's like, it's going to be what it's going to be. And it's okay, good. You probably, well, why am I supposed to be good? Why am I bad? I'm playing a game. Oh,
What if it's an epic though? Like what if it's just a match to end all matches?
I don't know because
Go ahead.
I can't figure out for the life of me what he wants right now. To be honest. And I don't know if he knows what he wants. I can't figure out a direction of how he's approaching the end of his career. Is he more satisfied with winning? Is losing going to push him out? Is winning going to push him out? I don't know. That's why it's a good question, right? But
Yeah, and
I
and
can't get a
also
read.
keeping in mind what Andy Murray just went through, and all of us went through who are fans of Andy Murray, and I am a huge fan of his. Um, just this way that he didn't want to go out this way, and as you like to point out, Joel, like the body tells you when it's time, and you don't really have a ton of say over it, but wanting so badly to have a certain ending, and it just didn't happen, and now he has to pull out of the singles at the Olympics, which he had wanted to play the singles. So having been through that with him as a fan, I'm now thinking of that in relation to Nadal.
Well, I think the fear is that if Rafa just keeps going, that's going to be how it ends, and that's how he didn't want it to end, which is why for him, I would love for him to put down an end and make that decision. For him, I want that. But
But but in a way, like your point is, it doesn't matter what any of us want. It might not even matter what he wants. It matters what occurs. Like for example, the epic match. One of them wins it, 18-16 in a decisive tiebreak. That's motivational no matter what the outcome is. If I win it, God, look at that. If I lose it, yeah, I mean, that's great. This is great. This is competing. This is competing as process. And I think that's what makes Nadal so great. And maybe it will finally be the body, as it was for Murray. As it was for Murray seemingly 5 years ago. I remember I was at the match in Australia that was supposed to be his last match in 2019. So again, and it isn't like a team sport where you file papers with the league and you're cut from the team. You are the team.
all right, we got on an aside here. I think, look, I like Djokovic in the match because I trust him more physically. I do think that he's striking the ball really well. Wimbledon was an offensive blitz, and I think Nadal's serve and his defense has looked vulnerable enough. I think Djokovic can implement that style on the clay against Rafa, but I think the biggest thing for me is that Djokovic, to me, is playing a lot braver in big situations. I thought Nadal played great against Zverev at Roland Garros, but his nerve management wasn't good. It's very interesting. It's close for me. I think closer than some people might give Nadal credit for, given the year that he's had. But I think Djokovic beats Nadal. I don't think he's gonna come away with the gold. I am concerned about the wanting it too bad aspect of it. And I'm concerned that the style we saw him reach the final at Wimbledon, that style that he played, it it's gonna work a lot better on grass than it will clay, and it's going to be more physical. He's going to have to play longer points. And I think the movement and the athleticism might be left a little bit more exposed. I don't know how much can change in 2 weeks. It's only been 2 weeks since Wimbledon. And ultimately, I think he goes up against the Zverev, goes up against an Alcaraz, and it's going to be too much. So we'll wrap on that. Joel, what do you
No,
think
I
of
like
that
that. I'm
assessment?
I'm I'm intrigued to see how it plays out for Novak. You're right. I think clay and the compressed format and playing some of these guys who are very physical. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we didn't quite know at Wimbledon. I mean, between the opponents Novak played, between the default win he had in the quarters, still an incredible effort after the knee surgery. But Alcaraz really kind of showed something at the end for Novak. I don't know. I want to it is a bit of a shame that he and Rafa are on the same path, so close that they're not in opposite halves. But and I'm also interested for just one brief thing on Nadal. I want to see that doubles him and Alcaraz. I think that's going to be the most exciting thing of all in the Olympics. I think that's going to be the most fun to see those two guys playing doubles together.
Yeah, really good point. I'm excited for that. We'll be with you guys at some point, either after Nadal and Djokovic are finished or during, hopefully during. That'll do it for this episode of 3. Remember, we're available on all podcast platforms. We appreciate it if you leave a rating and a review on Apple. And if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. We will see you next time on the next episode of 3.